Hi, I'm William Shatner. And will you help us land the shuttle here in Ticonderoga orbit? You'll find out how.
Now on Kickstarter.
Hey, this is Mark A. Altman.
And this is DAREN DOCHTERMAN.
And this is a reasonable facsimile of Ashley Miller.
And we are the Inglorious and recorded Treksperts.
Treksperts.
And this time it's you who has the con, because we're doing a deep dive into conventions. For the last 60 years, we've been celebrating Star Trek, and where can you do that better than at a Star Trek convention, an amazing phenomenon that celebrates the love for Star Trek. And we did that at Star Trek Las Vegas 2025 with an incredible panel featuring the comic book artist and writer behind When We Were Trekkies Once and Young, the great Joe SIKORYAK, the founder and co-CEO of Creation Entertainment, one of the first convention companies, along with his partner Gary Berman, to put on amazing Star Trek conventions for the last 50 or so years. They started very young. And of course, that's Adam Malin. We were thrilled to have him join us, talking about his Trek journey. And of course, our young Trekspert in training, junior Trekspert, she was featured in Vanity Fair for the 50th anniversary of Star Trek Las Vegas, of Star Trek, ZAZIE Sales, and she made her triumphant return to Vegas for the 60th. And we're thrilled to have ZAZIE join us as well. So
don't call her Trekspert in training.
Yeah.
Not a good idea.
Although, like we do on our merch store, sell Trekspert training pants. Wait,
Okay, and on that note, we have some housekeeping before we get to the panel on Star Trek conventions. Also, our Treksperts Plus subscribers will have access to a bonus episode recorded in GalaxyCon San Jose, where Ashley joins Joe and GalaxyCon Empresario Mike Broder to talk about conventions from his perspective, and that'll be available as an audio-only podcast to our Treksperts Plus subscribers. But let's talk about, first of all, there was some terrible news today. The great Robert Duvall, passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very sad. He's so good in everything he was in.
Even Aliens from Outer Space. You don't remember that?
Even Aliens from Outer Space?
That's right.
You know, I think it was...
Aliens from Another Planet. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Aliens from Another Planet. It's equally ridiculous.
I think he could have a small role and steal a movie, like in a movie like Apocalypse Now, or certainly I love him in Network. He's brilliant in Network. But then movies like The Great Santini, he's just incredible. I mean, when you look at his career,
THX 1138.
well, he sure is.
That's
for
right.
George
He
Lucas.
started in the whole sound system. It's crazy.
But
Or
He's
you
great,
know,
THX.
freaking Boo
he
Radley.
absolutely is. Yeah.
Yeah, in
Boo
To Kill a
Radley.
Mockingbird. Yeah, and he's so
Yeah.
great in that.
And
That's Trek
Killer Elite, man.
adjacent because Brock Peters is in it.
Totally. And so many other people.
Many
Yeah.
people.
That's
all
William
are
Wyndham.
welcome.
Yeah, there's actually a bunch of other Star Trek actors. I'm trying to remember who are in that. You know who's in it? I think.
Yeah.
Who's it from this side of
Frank,
paradise?
it's,
Frank Overton.
Elias Sandoval.
Yeah, Frank Overton.
Yes,
He's
yes.
in it. It's great watching these movies from the '60s where all these Star Trek guest stars are have these
Yeah.
small roles, and you see them, and you're like, I keep seeing Bell Oxman, Anthony Caruso in a bunch of movies,
Everywhere.
and it's like,
Right.
oh my God, it's so great. Speaking of so great, you see Pluto is finally emancipated the original Star Trek from Next Generation. There is now a TOS channel, or I should say a Star
love
Trek
it.
channel and a Next Generation channel.
A Star Trek channel. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is great because so you got Star Trek, you got Next Gen, you got Deep Space Nine, you also have Voyager, and I think they have an Enterprise channel now, which used to be banished to their Sci-Fi, Pluto Sci-Fi channel, but now I think it has a dedicated channel. It's just awesome because you can go on and watch Star Trek. Not that we couldn't anyway; we own all this stuff, but it's just so nice to be able to turn on the TV and just play the jukebox, you know, and just turn it
Not
on
only
and see
do we
what
own
Star
it, we
Trek
are
is
owned
on.
by it.
I would take advantage of it, but Project Tiny Treksperts is forcing me to
Ooh,
watch
wait,
everything more.
we
How's
that's
that
a
going?
really well. Wait, hold on. I want to get an update on Project Tiny Treksperts. Here we go. Okay, and now Tiny
And now.
Treksperts update.
Okay. So you know, we have we've moved on to the man trap, which, by the way, they really liked. I think, and they'll probably talk
sure.
about it at some point. But they liked. I think Griffin liked the man trap like better than either the cage or Where No Man Has Gone Before.
But does he like salt?
Does he like salt? Actually, that was like the best exchange between the two of them. They're watching this happen, and Griffin goes, "It's a salt vampire," and Locke goes, "It's an alien." And Griffin goes, "It's an alien salt vampire." And I'm like, "You guys are all right. It's great." And then
It's
Locke,
a floor
because-
wax.
and a dessert topping. And because Locke is like, he is very into protecting creatures. He got super freaked out. He was worried about the plant in the botany section. He's like, "Is it gonna die?" I'm like, "It's not gonna eat the plant, man."
Yeah, but she's like the buffalo. She's almost, you know, what he must have been
He's like,
upset.
buffalo burgers.
They
Yummy.
killed the
I mean,
the
she's
last
a
of its
handsome woman,
kind.
yes, but she's a
Yes,
buffalo.
but she's a buffalo.
And she's the last of her kind.
Yeah, but then he was worried that the creature was going to die. He's like, "Are they going to kill her?" Now, the best thing about watching it with people who have no goddamn idea what's going on in Star Trek and spent the last 2 episodes not seeing like the main cast. This is the first time they've seen it. Literally watching this thing, like every 5 minutes, Locke is asking me, "Is Dr. McCoy going to die?" I'm like, "Absolutely not, but wait and see." And I'm just, there's
not
something
till he's
wonderful about somebody
139.
wondering. Yeah, exactly.
And that's why you can listen to Inglorious Treksperts Jr., a new podcast from Ashley Edward Miller, every Saturday morning.
Oh,
No?
God, he's got the soundboard for crying out loud.
I can't believe he gave him a soundboard. Whose idea was that? Who authorized it? Is that in the budget?
Mark did.
Anyway, they're thrilled. Like they can't wait to move on. They're moving on to Charlie X, and we'll see if he's their darling or not.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what they say. Well, I'll be listening to your new podcast.
Exactly.
To find out.
Tiny Treksperts in my mind.
You know what would be a great double feature, actually, had you shown them the Man Trap and Space Vampire from Buck Rogers in the 25th century.
Right? It's like, you know, I feel like I was about 10 years old when I discovered Aaron Gray. Maybe it's time for them. Maybe it's time.
It couldn't hurt. You can never go wrong with Aaron Gray.
She's
right.
extra enticing in that episode.
Totally. Daddy, is she in every...
That's her favorite episode of Buck Rogers, you may recall from when she was on
Really?
the show. Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yep.
She loves that. She loves
Oh,
that
good,
episode.
because it's my
She got to be
favorite.
bad. Yeah.
What was he called? The Vorgon? The Vorta?
Something like that.
What was
The
he?
Vorvon.
The
Vorvon.
Vorvon. The Vorvon.
Vorvon.
Yeah. The Vortavor.
The Vortavor.
I don't know.
What?
It's not my favorite episode of Buck Rogers, by the way. You know what I'm really digging? A Pluribus. I finally finished Pluribus, and I love it.
Yeah.
Talk
great.
about smart science fiction. That Vince Gilligan could do no wrong, man. He's
Except for
But why
Battle
didn't
Creek.
he fix the boat?
Yeah, Gilligan. You can't
didn't he
make me.
fix the
You
boat?
can't make me.
Oh my god! You know the funny thing is, if he made that for Apple now, they would literally go and film on a deserted island somewhere, and you would film
hope
the
so.
boat going around the country.
They would try to figure out how to make phones.
They'd go
out
to
of fucking
Fiji to
coconuts.
film. That's the thing about the show. It's like it's set in Albuquerque, but my God, they go so many places. I'm just like, yeah, this is the show I want to write if I have that kind of budget, where we can just go to all these amazing places around the world and shoot. Nobody's going on the volume. They're like literally going to all these places, and it's incredible. It's great. It's great. And then I just saw. I don't know if you've watched this yet. Night of Seven Kingdoms, which I thought is terrific. Also.
I'm very excited to watch it. I am waiting for all the episodes to be out. I mean, I kind of go into it knowing a lot about it, but I'm very excited. I know that George is actually very happy with that show, which is not a given or a guarantee. And I also there were some things that I think probably ended up redounding to its benefit. Like there were some budget cuts and all that other stuff. And I think maybe, like, I have heard that that it's quite excellent given its narrower focus and scope. Also probably benefits from the fact that like they've built all these freaking sets and made all these props and all that stuff exists and they can just leverage it. But
see, that's the thing. Star Trek could really learn a lesson from how Game of Thrones has managed franchise management, because obviously Game of Thrones was a huge, immense show that consumed popular culture, swallowed up whole, and then House of the Dragon is a very expensive show, and then this just totally pivots to do something completely different. It's small, it's intimate, it's funny, it's like a little over half hour, still very dark in places, but it's tonally it's different. And it just totally scratches that itch in a different way, and I just think it's really remarkable, and it's brilliant, brilliantly written, really well done. I'd love to see Star Trek kind of pivot that way and do interesting things that take us by surprise. With great,
but in a good way, not in a.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Will I be able to follow it if I haven't seen Night of the Six Kingdoms?
Yes, you will.
Yeah.
Because this is 7. It's one more kingdom.
This one goes
one
to
louder.
11.
Yeah.
It's one more. Yeah. Dun, dun, dun,
The whole
one
extra
louder.
kingdom.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, we've been doing something here on the show, which is each week we've been reading a letter from one of our listeners talking about what Star Trek means to them on the 60th anniversary. It's also turned into a bit of a celebration of Inglorious Treksperts, which I didn't anticipate, but I deeply appreciate. So I want to read you. This is from an old, when I say old friend of the podcast, I met this next person at GalaxyCon Austin. I was at the LBJ Museum, and he came up to me tentatively and said, "Oh, I really enjoyed your panels at the convention, and big fan." And he started listening to the podcast and has become a
And he has an
diehard
interesting
listener.
name.
Yeah, Woodrow Wilson. No relation to the president. He is not Woodrow Wilson. He did not start the League of Nations. He did not. No, but he is a big Star Trek fan, and he wrote this lovely letter, which I'm going to share with you now. Dear Mark, Darren, and Ashley, I will always be eternally grateful to each of you for elevating my spirits during the most difficult time of my life. When my father died of a sudden stroke in July of 2023, I was extremely depressed and found it difficult to function. I think we can all relate to that, having all lost our fathers, and how absolutely depressing that can be. So we reach. Yet my family encouraged me to remember my dad by attending GalaxyCon in Austin, Texas, in September of 2023 to celebrate our shared love of Star Trek. As I entered the convention center, I was delighted to see so many Star Trek fans from all over the world, even if some of them seemed hell-bent on running me over with their motorized scooters. I love this guy. Yet the highlight of the convention came on Friday at 3:15 p.m. when I saw the Inglorious Treksperts for the first time. It started a bit unconventionally as Jonathan Frakes emerged from the audience and asked if he was in the right place. Frakes took the stage and began to interview himself for several minutes until eventually Mark, Ashley, and Darren appeared and started to engage Frakes in the funniest and most authentic way. I was immediately struck at the genuine rapport the Treksperts had with their guest and how they made the interview more about Jonathan Frakes as a person than just his portrayal of Will Riker. I enjoyed every minute of that panel, as well as the many other Treksperts panels that I enjoyed for the rest of the weekend. The day after the convention, I visited the LBJ Presidential Library, and lo and behold, I encountered one of the Treksperts in the flesh. Having that lovely visit with Mark outside LBJ's Oval Office was an unexpected bonus that solidified my affection for his brand of Trekucation. After my dad's passing, I never thought I could smile again, yet the Treksperts brought me genuine bliss that weekend and helped me begin the healing and grieving process. Up to that point, I had never listened to a podcast before, yet from that day on, I listened to every subsequent episode of the Inglorious Treksperts. In the past 60 years, much has been written and said about the monumental influence of the original Star Trek on our culture. It promoted infinite diversity and infinite combinations. It spotlighted social justice and civil rights issues like no other medium of its kind. It elevated our collective hopes, dreams, and aspirations for a brighter and optimistic future. It inspired multiple generations of scientists, engineers, astronauts, and teachers. It foreshadowed innovations in technology, medical treatments, and design. It elevated and invigorated our imaginations. As for me and so many others, who sometimes feel like outcasts, nerds, or social lepers. Star Trek gives us a safe space to feel normal, accepted, and included. It's not easy for some of us to make friends, thrive in social settings, or be considered cool and desirable by those around them. I know, not everybody can be like me. I understand, I get it. Sometimes, as an emerging adolescent, you need a Vulcan voice telling you that human females are rarely logical in matters of the heart. Sometimes, as a self-absorbed teen, you need a Klingon voice to remind you that the greatest honor is to serve others. Sometimes, as a kid who sits alone in the school cafeteria, you need a Data android voice to remind you of the unique wonders of your own humanity. Star Trek certainly didn't cure all my ills, yet it did give me a blueprint of possibilities that have definitely facilitated my enlightenment. Humanity can work together to solve problems. Humanity can have a promising future. Humanity can evolve. Humanity can save planet Earth from annihilation. Humanity absolutely can live long and prosper. Thank you, Mark, Darren, and Ashley, for celebrating the beauty and impact of Star Trek. Your podcast uniquely illuminates ideas and perspectives that go far beyond a science fiction mythology and nurtures real humans in marvelous, unexpected, and lasting ways. So say we all. Sincerely, WWW, Woodrow Wilson Wagner II.
Nice. Now
Isn't that lovely?
That's what I call a Woody's Roundup.
That's a great letter.
Yeah, I thought so too. And you know,
really
I have to say, it means so much to me to hear from all these people who've been going through these tough times that have the podcast has been so important to them. I'm mystified, to be honest, but I'm delighted and thrilled and happy and glad that it has been that for so many people. It does mean a lot.
Yeah, me too.
And keep those cards and letters coming, because we're going to keep reading them as long as we keep getting them, and they do seem to keep coming in. There are no cards.
There's no
There are
letters.
emails and letters and social posts. And you can send that
Keep
to us at
those
Treksperts
emails
Plus,
coming.
trekspertsplus@gmail.com. Yes, that's
Because
true.
Mark's
They-
not
they-
giving out a mailing address.
He's really not.
That's for damn sure. Anyway, so this week we're going to talk about Star Trek convention. This is a terrific panel. Going back, Joe was at some of those earliest Star Trek conventions in New York and on the West Coast at the very beginning. A lot of these put on by the committee. I mean, these are just terrific stories, and the homemade nature, the handcrafted nature of these shows is really something that leaves me a bit awestruck. I'd love to know, you guys, what your first convention experience was. I don't think we had a chance to talk about it on the panel. Darren, do you remember your first Star Trek convention?
I do. It was right around the time, I think it was right before, either it was right before Star Trek II or right after Star Trek II. It was a creation convention in Chicago, and I think Mark Leonard was a guest, and Walter Koenig. And that's where I got Chekhov's Enterprise signed by him the first time. And it was great. I had a great time. My dad dropped me off in the morning and picked me up in the evening. And it was so much fun, being on my own and going through the bins of scripts that they had bootlegged and all sorts of wonderful items in the dealer's room. It was a great amount of fun.
Did you ever think in a million years, when you saw Walter as a kid at your first Star Trek convention, that you would one day be, it's like that Ben Stiller show, Friends with Scotty, you're friends with Walter.
Right.
Walter, knows you. You've spent time literally on the bridge of the Enterprise in Ticonderoga. We've, spent a lot of time at conventions together. He's a wonderful guy. He was
Never
Monterey
in my wildest imagination.
Yeah. At least in Leningrad, maybe, but okay. What about you, Ash? What was your first Star Trek convention?
Man, I feel like it was something circa 1982. And the first time I went to one, I went with my dad, and we went to the dealer floor. I remember walking around being totally amazed by the dealer floor. I remember and they had everything there. I mean, just things that I could not even imagine. And then, I was curious about going to the main stage area and kind of seeing the programming and the actors. I can't even remember who was there. It might have been George was there, but I was just intimidated. I was intimidated. Like, I didn't even want to walk into that room because I was like, oh, it was too much. It was overwhelming to me. Like, wait a second, the Star Trek actors are going to be there. I can't deal with it. Daddy, let's go home. So if you can imagine that, Nope. And now look at me. And I'm still doing the same thing, except I get dragged out onto the stage like 3 martinis into it. It's pretty great. And then the first time that I actually went into the main stage, it was the same location, Tyson's Corner, Virginia. It was like 2 or 3 years later. And then I was a little braver. I did I remember doing the imitation, the impression contest, and I won. And Jimmy Doohan was there. And because I won it, I was going to get to meet Jimmy Doohan. But then I thought, oh my God, it's Jimmy Doohan. And so I ran. I left. I bugged out. I didn't meet Jimmy Doohan, who I later met a couple of years ago.
Did Jimmy Doohan enter the contest?
He did, and he failed. He did as Gene Roddenberry, and it sounded
lost.
like Jimmy Doohan. He lost. So, it was just, there was a progression of things.
But you did meet Lucien many years later, so it was almost as good.
Almost as good. Yeah.
Okay. So, look, it was so funny. I always say it's so ironic. The first time I went to, I think, a convention, it was a Creation baseball card show. Like, I was going, like their card shows. Mm-hmm. So, in
the
Brooklyn.
Early days, yeah.
And, it was really early days. And, they had a couple of little things here and there, but it was mostly sports stuff. And at the time, I was really into baseball and collected baseball cards.
Because you had enthusiasms.
I had enthusiasms. That's right. Individual achievements. But and then I do remember right after Star Trek: The Motion Picture opened, there was a convention in New Jersey, and I was with my grandfather, and I mentioned it in passing. He said, "Well, let's go," and so he took me, and George was at that one too, talking about Star Trek: The Motion Picture, how he hoped there would be another one when everyone should write to Paramount, and little again did I ever know in a million years that I would be sharing the stage and know George, and it was a great convention, Hasbrook Heights. I remember it. I'd seen an ad for it in a fanzine or something. And then, of course, I started in the early 80s going to these creation conventions in New York City, where my dad would drop me and some of my friends off, and we would, be there all weekend. And it was the first time I saw the trailer for Star Trek II and saw Angelique Pettyjohn, sitting there selling her wares in more ways than one, I think. And it was exciting and terrific. And of course, I think I saw that print of Day of the Dove that they showed at every convention many times, which was great because it's before home video, and they had one print. You have Day of the Dove, and you go into the room, and they would have it projected. And it was like, oh, Day of the Dove, this is great. I think that's one of the reasons I know every line of that, because I've seen Day of the Dove.
We need no urging to hate humans.
But it was great watching Star Trek with other like-minded individuals, and of course this was the age where there was so much of it that was fan-made. So there were the fanzines, all the different fanzines, and the homemade tribbles and all that kind of stuff, and there was just an excitement that you were part of like this secret society in a way, and it was wonderful. And and that's why I really enjoyed this panel that we did, because sort of Joe takes us backstage what it was like at the very beginning, which was a very delicate time. And of course, for Adam, sort of launching creation, and sort of for them it was the same thing, getting to know Gene Roddenberry, and then Bill and all the cast, and the fact that here we are all these years later and they're still doing it, and that we're a big part of that, obviously, which is really wonderful. Of course, we'll be doing again Star Trek Las Vegas 2026 this August. I hope many of you who have the ability to join us will be there. It's going to be really spectacular. It's a big birthday celebration for the 60th anniversary of Star Trek, and as Darren might say, we're pulling out all the stops.
We're stocking out all the pools.
I might
so
say
it's
that.
going to be pretty awesome. But this was a great panel, I thought. Really interesting. I'm really grateful to Joe SIKORYAK, who put together a great presentation. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to follow along. When you hear the chime, turn the page. And speaking of which,
When you
did
hear
you see?
R2-D2 beep like this.
I guess Skywalker Sound just celebrated their anniversary, and they had a big, party to celebrate, and they gave out as a thank you to everyone. They put the old Story of Star Wars vinyl album, which I still have on CD, which was obviously never released on CD, and gave that out as a prize, not prize, as a
awesome
in the gift bag. So Ashley, you look puzzled. The Story of Star Wars, it was before home video. These were popular records where it would be like the movie, and it would be like audio from the movies with a narrator. So Roscoe Lee Brown sort of narrated Star Wars, and then would cut to scenes. And it was the whole movie. They did it for Empire. I have the Black Hole, actually. There, other couple other movies. It was sort of it lived side by side with the photo novel. It was like the audio novel before home video. So that was a huge album, the story of Star Wars. People, it's the only way to really experience that movie without going to see it again.
There's a photo of me at like maybe 10 or 11 years old, sitting in front of my parents' record player, listening to this album, and it's in front of me, and I'm going through the pages of the booklet, and it's pretty special because it was a big deal.
Well, it's great that we could celebrate all these conventions on land, sea, or air. Darren's going to be leaving for the Star Trek cruise soon, so we better get this panel going before Darren has to leave on his cruise. So without any further ado, join us at Star Trek Las Vegas 25 for You of the Con, and we'll be back right after with a few closing thoughts. Stay tuned.
Representing all kinds of different eras. First and foremost, he's the author of When We Were Trekkies. This is a chronicle of his adventures as a young fan going to Star Trek conventions. It's really a wonderful comic strip that he does, and he has incredible stories about going to conventions in the very early days. And I'd like you to welcome Joe SIKORYAK. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, it's a rather new Star Trek fan. This wonderful part of the Treksperts team first came to our attention when she was featured in her mother's Vanity Fair story about the 50th anniversary Creation Star Trek convention. And now she's all grows up, and she's helping us on the Treksperts team, but she has incredible stories about her journey from being a young Star Trek fan, as featured in Vanity Fair, to now being at this incredible 59th anniversary Star Trek convention. Welcome to the stage, ZAZIE SALES. This next guest has been on the Inglorious Treksperts podcast a number of times. I am such a fan of his. When I was a young kid publishing a fanzine in New York, he was the guy I would always call for press kits or invitations to screenings. And no matter how young I was or how badly mimeographed our fanzine was, he was always at the end of the phone, you remember telephones, to answer the call. He was supervisor of the marketing and publicity for Star Trek 2, 3, and 4. He is a font of information about the history of Star Trek, and obviously was incredibly involved with bringing all kinds of talent and materials to the conventions. It's Eddie Egan.
Not to be confused with Olympics skier Eddie the Eagle. Totally different person.
And last, but definitely not least, the reason we're all here, a man who had a vision to build a convention empire when he was young. He gave a home to great artists who had never been to conventions. Jim Steranko, Jack Kirby, he shined a light on some of the greatest comic book creators of all time. He also, he did some baseball card shows too. But more importantly than that, his true love was Star Trek. And he has created this mecca for Star Trek fans over many years. Amazing stories, built Creation Entertainment into the powerhouse in the convention industry it is, and never lost his enthusiasm and passion for the genre. It's none other than Adam Malin. Let's let him sit there. No, let's. Adam, take the center seat.
That's right. It's your stage, man.
I'm paying for this microphone.
Literally.
Okay, well, let's have a seat.
Okay.
I want to start. I'll start with you, Adam. You were a very young kid growing up in New York. When did Star Trek conventions first come on your radar? When did you realize that there were these events going on, that fans of like-minded interests came together?
Well, Mark, does this come over? I'm gonna.
And that's when ZAZIE was strangled to death by the.
I just saw Eddie backstage. Eddie, how many years has it been? Shit. It's unbelievable. Eddie was like an important force at our shows for several years. I can't remember the time period. It's been so long, but it is really great to see you. Loved you then, love you now. Morning, everybody. Okay, so, well, let's see. You know, like, as all of you of a certain age, I grew up watching Star Trek when it first aired. And by the way, my parents loved it too. And there was something that was on at the same time that was competing with it, so that used to be a problem too. What was airing?
Eyewitness News? No, that was not.
It might have been Outer Limits.
On Channel 9. I think Outer Limits was on Channel 9.
This is in New York, so
Yes.
that was a bit of a problem because there's no such thing as, you know, destination viewing, or there was destination viewing, but there wasn't any kind of video capture. So, but I did see most of the episodes when they first aired. And around 1970, I heard that there was a comic book marketplace in New York City, and run by a guy named Phil Suling. That name may be familiar to a couple of you. And I went to it, and I discovered that there existed a fandom. I didn't even know fandom existed. I had a little hint of it from Marvel comic books. See, I was a Marvel Comics fiend. Jack Kirby and Stan Lee are my incredible mentors and inspirations. Can I get some testimony for Stan and Jack? Anybody? All right. You're the right audience. And so I knew from inside the comic books, there was a trade magazine called Rocket Blast Comic Collector. And I got a hold of that, and that's where I heard about the marketplace, Phil's Marketplace in New York City. I went to it, and there were, you know, hundreds of not only comic book fans, but they were genre fans, because most comic book fans are genre fans. And I'm like, oh my God. And it took about 2 seconds to have the light bulb moment. You know, me as a little shit thinking that I could just run a show at the age of 14. It's stupid in retrospect, but my parents being so progressive and forward thinking, and my parents really were remarkable, remarkable people. They, you know, said, all right, go run your convention. And I did. That was 71. Obviously, I was a huge Star Trek fan, but I figured that, excuse me, that was, you know, beyond my pale. I was doing comic book conventions, and I mean, we did have amazing comic book guests like Steranko and Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, but almost as fast as we got off the ground, there was a show in 1972 in Manhattan run by a nebulous organization called the Committee, a very mysterious committee. And it was a Star Trek convention at the Statler Hilton Hotel, which is where we would eventually run shows too. We started out at the New Yorker for, I want to say, a couple of years, and then we moved over to the Statler Hilton. But this was at the Statler Hilton on the 18th floor. Is there anybody here that remembers the Statler Hilton and actually went to shows in that hotel? Okay, so I see there's two or three people out there that did. And this was sort of like this was the Hotel Pennsylvania from Pennsylvania 65000. It was really, you know, maybe 100 years ago, very, very famous. But of course, by the time we had inherited it, it was an old dowager, not quite a flop house, but it was in dilapidated shape.
The Rio is the Four Seasons compared to the Statler Hilton.
And that's saying a lot. We made our way through pretty much every dowdy, bad hotel in New York City in that earlier career. You couldn't get into Manhattan now. It's a city of the rich and privileged, and the hotels in there don't even want this kind of business. But we ran shows for several years there. Anyway, 72, I went to the committee's event in New York, and I'm up there on the 18th floor in the Pentop room, which is maybe, well, it's long and narrow. Maybe if you took this room, cut it in half, and took the other half and just sent it down that way, that would give you an idea of its size. And it was completely filled with people, and it was standing room. It was a fire marshal horror, and I was literally sitting in the aisles. I'd never let you people do that, but I did it. No, because the fire marshal will shut you down, and I have had some bad experiences with fire marshals in my tender youth, so I know better than to cross those dudes because they mean business. You do not cross a fire marshal. But yeah, that was like, wall-to-wall people. I'm lying on the floor, and oh my God, it's Gene Roddenberry. Gene Roddenberry is there regaling the audience. This is 72, so Star Trek had been off the air, 3-4 years.
Yes, 69.
And we just couldn't believe it because we loved Star Trek and we were really crushed that it was gone. Of course, it wouldn't come back for another 5 years, and it took a guy like George Lucas to kind of kick Gene on the head and say, listen, you're kind of late to the party. You should be doing a Star Trek movie too. But there were a couple of committee events, early Star Trek events in New York City in the early 70s. And by the way, a kind of a subculture was the World Science Fiction Convention, which often ran shows in New York and also had some amazing guests. And we did get some trickle down from that. The most important guest, as far as I'm concerned, from the science fiction world was the great Isaac Asimov. And Isaac, from our very first show, like when I advertised the 1971 first show, I get a call from Isaac Asimov, and he says, "Would you like me to come to your show?" And I'm like, and by the way, I just too young. I mean, I had read a couple of his books.
What did you say? I assume you said yes.
I said, yeah, of course, that's wonderful. But I did not appreciate the gravitas of having Isaac at my show. And he came every year for about 7 or 8 years, until he passed away. And I miss him desperately. I wish he was alive to see Foundation because I think it's such a fabulous show. And every time I watch that show, I just think dearly of those times that Isaac came to our show and regaled the audience with his incredible vision of the future. A lot different than Gene Roddenberry's, by the way, but he was one in a million. Anyway, there was this Star Trek convention subculture in New York City in the early 70s. Now, my question to the panel here and anybody else is, when did the Star Trek convention subculture start developing in other parts of the country? Can we get any historical
I'd love
perspective?
to hear Joe's insight. Of course, you've chronicled your convention stories in your comic strip, When We Were Trekkies. I always like to say when we were Trekkies once and young, but when we were Trekkies. But you went to a lot of shows on the West Coast, but also some of those very early Star Trek conventions on the East Coast.
Yeah, Joe, when were the earliest ones that you went to?
Well, so I'm about your age, but I wasn't so industrious as to start my own show. But as soon as one of my friends found a flyer about this, we were all over it. Now, this was a time when, in order to get tickets, you had to mail money along with a self-addressed stamped envelope and wait 6 weeks for it to come back. Well, we weren't going to do that, so we just dressed up and went into the show without tickets. That turned out okay.
This is not recommended. This is 1972.
This is 1972.
This was 72. Was it a Star Trek convention?
Actually, I'm sorry, it was 74, and it was a committee-run Star Trek convention. In fact, I have a little scene setter here. I have a couple of slides.
In Manhattan?
In Manhattan.
Oh, that's very cool.
All right, so let's see if this works. Do I go that way?
Computer.
Computer. There we go. So you can see that
I remember these.
partisan politics is nothing new. This was the front and back cover of one of the covers of one of the programs, and you had your choice, the Federation or the Klingon Empire. Take your pick.
Would that be Michael and Sarah in that depiction?
It sure looks like it does.
Even back then, the Klingons had a completely unnecessary apostrophe in their words.
Yes. It must be an AI translation.
It's possessive. They want to possess people, so therefore it's...
Exactly right. It's subtext.
So, the way to find out about a convention was to get one of these flyers.
Look at those.
And you can see how wonky some of them could be. Maybe we'd find it in a comic book store. Or
There's no desktop publishing. Letraset.
Oh, that's right.
Press
yeah, Zipatone. That's right.
So when we found these, it was very exciting, and it was also still very mysterious. Later on, people would write to the Star Trek Well Committee. Anybody remember the Well Committee?
Yeah, of course.
So the Well Committee would put fans in touch with other fans. And so they would then get you on the mailing list, and we'd start to get mailing lists. So here's some artifacts from the first convention I went to and some of the others. That was the program. There was a pre-printed program and our little cards. In fact, notoriously, they were expecting 6,000 to 8,000 people. 12,000 people showed up to this convention in 1974.
These shows were huge, and of course there was no control over the crowds. So, because like a creation, we literally only sell on the number of tickets to the number of seats in the venue, and we capacity control that because the fear of God from fire marshals has been put into us. But you might have had a room for 1,000 or 2,000 people, and then 10,000 people showing up. It's crazy.
Right. That's right. They were waiting outside. The committee was made up of a few women, Deborah Langsam, Joan Winston. They've written books called Star Trek Lives and the Star Trek Conventions, and they're really fascinating reads.
And Joan is a doll, by the way.
So they ran out of badges, then they had to run out to get index cards and gold stars and hand that out to people and say, this is your ticket, don't lose it. All right, come on.
Next slide, please.
Damn you, sir.
There we go.
Will Trump.
This is an example of the program. The entire contents of a 4-day convention fit on a half side of a sheet of paper. And then the other half was,
Hey, David Gerald's in that one.
Typewritten.
David Gerald
I'd
was...
really like to meet him.
Yeah. Also, there's another dude named Mike. That's good.
And Isaac Asimov, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
In case you can't
And there's a
see,
writer's panel. Check that out.
And the last time Shatner was on stage was George Takei. Look at that.
And please, no wagering.
This is fascinating. Bill Shatner rap session. This is just in case you can't read it from there. Majel Barrett was there. Andromeda Light Show.
I thought William Shatner rapped in Free Enterprise. I thought
That Andromeda Light Show, I believe, was one of those old school things where they have oil in a medium and then they swirl it around on what do you call those projectors like we had in school?
Overhead
Like on an
projector.
overhead
Right,
projector,
yeah.
and they're swirling oil, and that's kind of like your
And that
trippy
was-
special effects.
Oh, look, Bill Tice was there at 4 o'clock on
This was-
Sunday. Amazing.
Jeff Maynard
much under-
was the photographer who did that for many shows.
Jeff
many
Maynard
times.
was a vendor of ours for like 1,000 years. Is he still alive? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
This is an example of the art show. And you can see how charmingly handmade everything was, including the prizes they gave us for best costume. It's a far cry from what you can get at the dealer's room today.
That's a fine-looking award ribbon if ever I've seen one.
And of course, our biggest source of information was fanzines. And fanzines were often mimeographed, if you remember the alcohol-based purple ink thing that they used in schools for
I
Smelled
remember.
really weird. Yeah.
It's like Dennis Hopper in Blue Velvet with that stuff.
Yeah.
Xeroxes were still a little expensive at this time, and often what would happen is you would write to the publisher of a fanzine. He would mail you one with instructions to mail it to the next person after you read it. Because they were only printing 15 or 20, and
It was expensive to print that, to go to the printer. and have
Wait a
that
second.
printed.
Is there anybody in the audience that ever saw any copies of Gary's and my magazine, Infinity? Anybody? Ooh. Well, we published, because we would come out of the comic art graphic story culture, a beautiful, lavish photo offset set of fanzines from, I think, 70 to 75 that were actually gorgeous with incredible artwork by Bernie Wrightson, Jeff Jones, Mike Kaluta, Frank Frazetta, Roy Krenkel. I mean, you can't believe there was zero editorial quality because we didn't have any brains. You saw on Infinity?
Oh, yeah. We got them.
It was gorgeous, right?
Gorgeous.
No editorial quality at all because we're little kids, but we could scrounge our way into getting incredible artwork. Yeah, Frazetta, I mean, it's unbelievable. And these were beautiful. And the reason why they were so nice graphically, I owe a lot to my dad, Mo Malin. He was a commercial artist, and he helped fix me up with typeset for the book, actual typeset, of course, before desktop, beautiful photo offset, color covers. I mean, this was one of the most, kind of like, if a couple of you know Squatrant, Spafon, These were exceptional EC fanzines that also had very high production values. Most fanzines looked like what we're looking at here, but there were a couple of high-end fanzines. Infinity was one, Squatron, and also my colleague Bob Gerson, who now lives in California. Reality was his. And Neil Adams actually worked with the group with Sal Cortuccio. I don't remember the name of that, but that was also a prozine too. So there were some prozines.
You know, by the way, Adam, my favorite story that you told about your dad was how you were so young when you were doing your conventions that he had to sign the contract with the hotel in order to put on your New York's conventions.
Yeah, God bless them. I mean, my parents would let me do anything. I mean, this is almost dangerous. They used to let me go into Manhattan myself at the age of 8. I'd say, I want to go into the city because I lived on Long Island, and my mom would say, all right, go on, just get home by dinner.
God, I wish my kids
That's
would
what you
that.
say to your 8-year-old kid. Yeah, my dad worked in the Pennsylvania building on 34th between 7th and 8th. And then on 34th and 8th was the New Yorker Hotel. So he knew it was right down the block from him. This, by the way, is where Tesla, I guess, committed suicide. That hotel, there's a Tesla room in there. But yeah, he marched me in there. And,
Not the car company, Nicholas Tesla.
Yes.
Nikolai.
And then the salespeople, you know, I don't know, to me it seems extraordinary, but the guy didn't even bat an eye. He said, yeah, just get your dad to co-sign it, you're in. And it was $1,000, by the way, for all the meeting space for a weekend. $1,000. And I think tickets to our first show were $1. So maybe just as a gift to you guys, one of these days we'll offer convention tickets at 1971 pricing. Would that be good?
Yeah. You heard it here first.
You guys have to like mortgage your homes to buy a frickin' ticket for our show, but I mean, it is pretty fun. Oh, and then hotel rooms, I think were $18.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so moving along. Another thing that was different was that access to the stars was much easier. I mean, you can see Rod and Majel, Gene and Majel, surrounded by people in the room. Nichelle, George, James, and Walter were regulars at all the New York conventions in the 70s, and they just came freely. And in fact, they came without remuneration. But that changed in 1975. A fellow who was a member of the committee named Al Schuster, famously Al Schuster.
Al Schuster was the guy that printed the first 2 issues of Infinity, and then I gave him the money for issue number 3, and he ran away and never printed my magazine. I lost all the money that I gave him. That bastard.
Al Schuster.
So, well, yes, Al's innovation was that he paid someone to show up at his convention. Bill came to his first convention in 1975 in January, and later that week appeared on Goodnight America with Geraldo Rivera. And as you can see, in contrast to today, Mr. Shatner looks a little tentative about all this attention around Star Trek. He was a good sport, but there was something lingering beneath that.
Well, what people don't realize about Bill, and Adam and I contest, is that Bill's really a shy guy, actually. You wouldn't know it from, the way he comes alive when he's on stage, but he is very shy and he's very interested in other people. It's a really fascinating aspect
The
of his
bravura is a self-defense mechanism of sorts, probably.
So this is very memorable to me because the producers of Goodnight America went into the masquerade room. By the way, we didn't call it cosplay then. It was masquerade. It was costumes. And they asked some of us to come and populate the audience, which we did. And I'm the Klingon in the center, surrounded by my good gal pals and our Mugatu and our Andorian. And then, of course, in the front row, they put the people wearing Kiss makeup. And, of course, you could see this is the respect we got from the press at this time. Even, Geraldo had to wear the stupid, goofy ears to kind of dig at us. And that's something that's changed too, is that there's a lot more respect for fandom today than there was then. It was either, can you believe it?
We were considered social deviants. And by the way, are there any fans of Mugatu out there? We love Mugatu, right?
Especially on lower decks.
So how many of you of a certain age were also fans of Joe Stefano's Outer Limits? This is an incredible show. Star Trek and Outer Limits both shared the same costume, prosthetic, production team, Projects Unlimited, which is why monsters from the two series looked a lot alike. And Mugatu has got all the hallmarks of a Projects Unlimited monster, and their work was fabulous.
So this is the kind of coverage we were getting in the newspapers. Can you believe it? And again, with the KISS people getting...
Hi-ho, a-trekking they will go. Hordes of sci-fi fanatics flock to Trek Conclave.
And there was a lot of exclamation points. 8,000 people, 12,000 people. Can you believe it? Do these kids' parents know where they are?
No.
No.
So again, I think it's a little more measured today.
I think Mark Finston has a problem with Star Trek.
Yes, he does. I write about him.
Is that Angelique Trouvert there on the left?
That is Angelique Trouvert.
Unbelievable.
And her buddy Chris Lundy. Angelique and Chris were two of the premier queens of cosplay back in the 70s. Now. But they were our chief rivals. My friends and I were all cosplayers. That's us driving to New York in the back.
And nobody noticed. That's the weird part.
Yeah. Except for the guy in the toll booth. The guy in the toll booth gave us a double.
Joe, do you remember Animal X? She was another big cosplayer at the time.
That's Chris. Chris is Animal X.
Oh, Chris is Animal X. I
Right.
see. Chris Lundy, that was her actual name?
Yes.
Gary and I went to her studio one morning in Brooklyn, and she had all these costumes made up of scarab beetles, like a whole costume covered in iridescent scarab beetles. It was kind of creepy, but they were both amazing talents.
Yeah, I've got a lot of pictures of them in my photo album, and I just wanted to at least acknowledge them.
Fabulous.
And so this was the dichotomy. My pals and I dressed up. We were the first guys to show up at the convention with convincing rubber prosthetics. And happily, Fred Phillips was the judge that year. And he was very impressed.
The makeup artist on the original Star Trek and early days of Next Generation and some of the movies.
Did you do your own applications?
We did our own. We did ours, yes.
That's impressive.
And so we won first prize as Best Aliens. And those girls, thank you, those girls were consistently winning for also sexiest costume. And we had some great awards back then.
Can I stop you for just a second? Eddie, what year did you start working at Paramount? It was Paramount, right?
Yeah, I started working there in 78.
78.
I was
Also
20
started very young.
years old.
What initiated that job for you? Was it Star Trek or?
Not exactly. I had worked I got out of high school and started working in production in New York on various movies, including Superman and
Well, when you say production, what do you mean?
production assistant.
A PA?
Yeah.
Okay.
On a bunch of movies. And the last one I worked on was The Warriors, which was a Paramount movie. And then I saw a job listing in the HR, or whatever they used to call HR then, personnel department.
The crazy thing about you was you were working on Superman the day of the New York blackout.
Yeah.
I remember that, right?
Yeah, and they got some of the generators kept the film shooting for a while before the curfew was
So how did you
declared.
get attached to Star Trek as a property?
I mean, I liked it. I like you. I watched it on WPIX at during 5 days a week, especially when we got a color TV. So I had always had a fondness for it, and when I got there, they realized that, and they used me as a sort of buffer between the fans who would write in or call in.
Well, you would come in and literally promote upcoming Star Trek
IP,
but right?
That came later. Yeah.
What were
there was nothing to promote during Star Trek 1.
what were the Star
Maybe
Trek
the third
films that you I guess not TV, but Star Trek films that you promoted with us?
I came to California to work as the unit publicist on Star Trek II, and then they kept me on, and then they asked me to go back to New York to work full-time, and then Leonard Nimoy asked me to help supervise Star Treks 3 and 4, and then I moved to LA in '85.
Well, Eddie, you were very active in promoting Star Trek II at the conventions, because I remember seeing that, you know, little Star Trek II gatefold for the first time. At the end of the universe lies the beginning of vengeance.
Yeah.
And the first time I saw the Star Trek II trailer was at Adam and Gary's show in New York. And I think Laura Banks was there and Walter were promoting it. When did you realize, once you were working for the studio, that there was this natural synergy between what you were doing and the conventions? And did you get much pushback from other people that didn't understand the conventions?
No one understood the conventions.
They still don't.
I mean, certainly no one I worked with at Paramount understood the conventions, so they were happy to have me go and do whatever it was I did. I mean, I had no direction.
You were really awesome, Eddie. You used to come in, you were super friendly, you didn't have any airs at all. You'd come in, you were like, you know, coming from Mount Olympus. You were coming in bearing promotional materials on sacred new Star Trek IP.
Yeah.
And we were so grateful for it, Eddie. We really were.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it was fun. I met so many great people over the years and have kept in touch with some of them. I couldn't be happier of my association with Star Trek.
So grateful for you. Joe, I didn't mean to hijack you. It's just that I was trying to figure out historically when Eddie came into the scene.
Well, I'm just about finished here anyway. This last photo is a famous, somewhat famous group shot of all the winners at the 1974 Star Trek convention, taken by Neil Slavin, who specializes in photos of subcultures. And I just want to point out that with the exception of me and my two buddies, almost everyone else up here are women. And at this point in cosplay, women were the leaders in making costumes because they could sew. And nobody was gluing rubber on their faces yet. or building things out of more complicated materials.
You know, the other thing to note about this is it's easy to take for granted the fact that we have the internet. That you can go and you can get clips, you can get stills, you can get whatever you want to study, to design your costume, to make it right. They didn't have that. They didn't have patterns. They didn't have, you know, the pieces that people were selling. Like, you can't go out and get a comm badge. You can't do any of those things. So to me, it's astonishing how accurate so many of those costumes are.
Well, they could buy stills from Major Roddenberry.
Oh, right.
Yes. You know, at Lincoln Enterprises, you know, it's interesting you mentioned the prominence of women, because, of course, in the literary Star Trek world, the sci-fi world outside of multimedia, there was a lot of misogyny and there weren't a lot of women. Star Trek conventions proved to be a gateway for women, and you see a lot more women coming to sci-fi conventions. They started the first Star Trek conventions, if you count the convention in New Jersey in the late 60s, which was an amazing conclave of Star Trek fans.
Who was the famous sci-fi author lady who...
Vonda McIntyre?
Ursula Le Guin?
Ursula Manning, yeah, who, there were a couple who sort of kind of had pseudonyms or didn't reveal that they were women because of that misogyny towards
Sure. Well, DC
female writers.
Fontana is obviously a great example. Right. She didn't go by Dorothy Fontana because of the prejudice against female writers writing action. They thought they could only write about, you know, homemaking. I mean, it was a very, very different time, which, ZAZIE, I want to get back to Joe's slideshow, but before we do that, I want to talk about, it was the end of the slideshow. I want to talk about you because, of course, you came to your first Star Trek convention, which was chronicled in Vanity Fair. People can Google it and see, as a young 16-year-old, what was, you know, you came to very different conventions that we're looking at. This was the 50th anniversary. This was obviously 9 years ago. What was your feelings when you found all these like-minded individuals and, you know, all these people in these costumes? And it must have been sensory overload.
I mean, it was great. I loved it. I was 15, actually. But yeah, I got into Star Trek when I was like 12 or 13. My mom introduced it to me. But I think at this point I've probably surpassed her in Trekkiness. And I don't remember exactly how I found out that conventions were a thing. But when I found out, I was like, oh my God, I have to go to this, because it just sounded like so much fun. So, you know, I asked my mom, like, can we please go to a convention? And she was like, hey, this would be a great Vanity Fair article. She's actually, my mom is in the audience right now, so hi, Mom. But
Hey, Nancy. So you were the impetus for that article in Vanity Fair about creation, where you said, I want to go to a convention. She said, that's a great idea for an article. And she pitched it to Vanity Fair, and they were like, okay. And then you guys came out from the East Coast, and what was your impression of all this? It must have been like Dorothy coming out of black and white, opening the door and going into Oz in color.
I mean, yeah, no, it was wonderful. And, you know, I really enjoyed meeting actors and writers who worked on Star Trek and meeting the stars and stuff like that. But I think my favorite thing about that convention that I went to was the Trekkies themselves. Because, you know, I think Star Trek attracts a certain kind of person who believes in the values of Star Trek, like, you know, justice and peace and tolerance. And so, you know, it was really wonderful to get to hang out with a bunch of like-minded people. And I think that generally Trekkies are just super nice, you know, and I'm sure that that's something that has stayed the same throughout all of the conventions since the 70s.
Eddie, what were the kind of materials that you were getting to the conventions to promote the movies? And did you conceive of like specific promotions that you wanted to do at the conventions that would be different than, say, you know, for a talk show or other publicity channels that other movies might have?
Well, being something of a collector myself and a fan myself, I always knew that if you brought something you could distribute,
Swag.
People loved that, and for the second movie, we didn't really have, well, we had a little bit of AV material, but it was basically the trailer and a behind-the-scenes collection of interviews. But as time went on, I did slideshows and showed things that were not available in the regular media. But there's nothing like a table, a stack of things that people can take and have signed by members of the cast.
Eddie, didn't you help facilitate bringing in Nick Meyer? Because I know Nick seemed to be rather invested in going to the fan audience.
Yes, he was not having any. He wouldn't even listen to a suggestion that he would go to a convention, but eventually he did. And over the years, I've seen him really embrace his what Star Trek meant for his career and meant for himself and the people he met through it. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of, you know, it's interesting. Some people, they kind of run away from their Star Trek association, but usually at some point they re-embrace it very passionately. We've seen that with some of the actors. We've seen that with some other people. So it's very interesting in that respect. How do you think, Adam, conventions have changed from the days we've just seen and talked about with Joe to today? And what do you think are some of the great innovations that have taken conventions to where we are now versus the simplicity and innocence of those early conventions?
Well, first of all, there's all the fundamental changes in technology and media that we've all experienced. I mean, back in the early days, there was no desktop, so everything was snail mail, published, you know, photo offset, catalogs, mailing to customers, direct marketing. And then all of a sudden, the desktop arrived, and it became a digital world where graphics could be assembled digitally, and computers, as they became more and more advanced and fast, really facilitated a lot of what we could do in terms of the graphic look of the events. And then the internet was, you know, astounding in that what that did was that basically took snail mail and the whole idea of sending e-blasts, took snail mail and catalogs and threw them out the window. Like back in the day when my dad was selling women's fashion back in the 50s and the early 60s, it was all catalogs. They would print millions of expensive catalogs and mail them out all over the country, which, by the way, he did so much printing he used Triangle Publishing, who published TV Guide, and did it out of Lexington, Kentucky, and brought so much business with those catalogs to the state of Kentucky. They awarded my dad a Kentucky colonelship. So my dad was a Kentucky colonel, even though he's a New York boy. But with the internet, we at Creation stopped doing mailings. Mailings ended, and it was a huge savings, and that allowed us to actually take that money and put it more into programming and production. So, of course, sending e-blasts and web platforms, and now, of course, social platforms revolutionized the way in which we told people about our shows. But in terms of production, that's kind of the side that I'm more interested in myself. Gary's more the marketing guy. I'm more of the software, the talent, the conceptual and the production side. And so I'm proud of how far we've come just in terms of show production. Just watching that Broadway show on Thursday night really kind of blew me away at how far we had come. And I still feel like we have a long way to go. I have some surprises for you guys in the next year or two. It's just all about money, but I have some looks for our main stage and the main theater that are pretty unbelievable, if I can afford to do them, that I think are going to really blow people's minds. And again, you know, collaborating with so many incredible technical and production people and so many creatives. That's what we live for at Creation is all about our collaboration and celebration of creatives. We're grateful for those relationships. And all we want to do is, you know, give a great piece of entertainment to our audience. So that means that we always get out of our comfort zone, always continue to try and innovate in terms of production techniques. And we still screw up after all these years in so many ways. So I beg your forgiveness for all the ways in which we don't have our acts together, but always you can write, always can write me, Adam at creationent.com, or anybody on the team. Just tell us, where we're, if you have an idea or enhancement, we're very, very receptive. But I do think, though, that we've made a huge progress in terms of the way that the show looks, and honestly, in terms of the show software. I mean, Mark having the Treksperts stage and you and your team's expertise that you brought to our show in terms of programming has just really added so much intellectual discourse and interest and color to the show. The widening of content that we offer at our show is an important part of how I think we've grown. And you and Ashley and Darren, the stuff that you guys do is so great, and we're so grateful to you for it.
Well, thank you, Adam. Appreciate that. I want to, I know we got a big line for questions, so I want to try and get through everyone's questions. So please go ahead.
How's it going? My name is Andy. I am a fan of a certain age and have gone to a lot of conventions over my life. And I want to talk about one in particular. It was the 1986 Los Angeles 20th anniversary convention at the Disneyland Hotel when there was only one hotel there. And it was 20th anniversary. I got to see Roddenberry. I got to see, it's the only time I remember seeing DeForest Kelley. There was a trivia contest during this thing, and admittedly it was 2 years before Next Generation. So there was a lot less trivia, but I did manage to win the trivia contest. And the winner of that trivia contest got a very special prize. And I think one of you might remember what that prize was. Got to spend a day on the set of Star Trek IV. And to
like
this
you, Eddie.
day, I still remember the name of the guy that took us around the set. His name was Eddie Egan. And here we are, 39. You may not remember me, but I sure remember you.
What were they shooting that day?
They were shooting the scene from on planet Vulcan.
Yeah.
Damage control is easy. Reading Klingon, that's hard.
I do remember you.
Yeah, it was one of the most memorable conventions and then days of my life to be able to spend on the set at Paramount Studios. You took us to every set that I could think of. I sat in Sulu's chair on the Klingon bridge. We went to Cheers, and 39 years.
I like to drink.
39 years later, I get to say thank you for one of the most memorable days of my life. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See, Eddie, everyone does know your name. That's
Eddie.
That's right.
And by the way, Eddie was like that with everybody. He's such a sweet guy. I mean, he really could have been exactly the opposite. A lot of people from the studios that would come into our shows often did have attitudes about us as an audience. It took us a long time to gain respect. You know, now genre fans rule the world. We're socially in vogue. We're considered socially forward and chic. But back in the day, everybody, including the corporates, looked at us as dweebs. But the great Eddie Egan, I'm here to testify, always came in a very loving manner and just gave everything to our audience. So we're definitely grateful for that, Eddie. You're awesome.
He loved the fans because he is a fan. And his stories are incredible. And I wish we could talk to him for 3 hours. But that's what the podcast is for. You should hear some of his remarkable stories and insights about Star Trek and King Kong and Superman, all the movies he was around, you know, as a young kid, and then, you know, became a very powerful executive at 20th Century Fox and Universal. Go ahead.
Hi there. My name is Harriet, and I'm from Louisiana and the Dallas area. So our first experiences were going to conventions as a family, dressing our children up. And so in 1982, there was one in StarCon in Dallas, and it was our first one. And I was wondering if one of my first experiences was experiencing filking. Do you have any memories of filking?
Good old filking. This is folk music that, for those of you that don't know, it's folk music that is singing songs about, you know, back to, what is it?
It's Star Trek. They're Star Trek songs, parody songs, often written to familiar tunes like the Battle Hymn of the Republic or a modern Major General. I stumbled into a filking session, and I was very confused. By the way, filking is a typo. It was originally, somebody was supposed to put folk singing in a program, and they typed filk singing, and it stuck. So filking is folk singing.
That's a word I haven't heard in a long time.
That's
a long time.
We're never doing. Oh, wait, maybe we will.
Filking was huge at the conventions. Huge. I mean,
Couldn't
I know it's
believe
hard
how
to imagine
filking it
now.
Back to Argo.
So filking big.
Back to Argo, right? That was like the big one.
And 16 millimeter prints of Day of the Dove. That was also.
Hi, my name is Rachel Eisenberg. I've been a longtime fan since the late 80s, early 90s, when my babysitter used to take me to conventions in Boston. They used to have Star Trek conventions there. So Nikola Tesla was definitely schizoaffective. He believed his best friend was a pigeon who talked to him, and he spent all his patent money on a lavish social life. However, he definitely did not try and commit suicide. His official cause of death was coronary thrombosis, or probably a heart attack as a result of the thrombosis.
Thank you for that correction, because we love Nikola Tesla. It would be nice to know that he didn't actually try and off himself. However, at least they have the room where he did die for whatever kind of peculiar interest. If you go to the New Yorker hotel, you can stay in the Nikola Tesla room. Why you would want to, I have no idea, but they
have a whole exhibit on him in the basement. Not that I would go into the basement at the New Yorker.
But evidently Tesla was a true genius and maligned by the other evil corporate powers of the time.
Hi, Mr. Malin. I'm Nancy.
Hey, Nancy.
I was at the 1975 and 1976 New Yorkers with my mom, who said, George Takei is a very nice person. I was sitting next to him at the projection room.
Who?
George Takei.
Oh, George.
The reason that at age 63 we're back is because of the Treksperts.
Thank you.
You drew us back into the conventions because of them, so keep them.
Even though George Takei wasn't here. But you know what one of my favorite creations was? 1987, Gene Roddenberry and George Lucas for the 10th anniversary of Star Wars convention.
Yeah.
Seeing them on stage together was just remarkable.
It was amazing putting that together, and then after the show, we get this telegram from George Lucas that is like this. It's the biggest telegram you've ever seen. It's like not quite the size of this screen, but it was maybe like 10 by 10, and it said, "Thanks so much, guys." I don't even know what happened to it, but it came all folded up, and we opened it up, and it's like, oh my God, it's a giant telegram, biggest telegram I've ever seen from George Lucas.
You can't possibly save all the mementos you must get, because over, close to 60 years, you've accrued such an amazing group of...
I consider myself an excellent archivist. I've done that well. I've still managed to lose tons of stuff down through the years, even every time we move an office.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Julie, and the first convention I ever went to was in the Chicago area, and I'm trying to track down the date, and I don't know when it was.
What was the hotel?
I don't even remember. I don't even know if it was at a
The first
hotel.
one was in 75.
This was the Next Gen cast. So Marina Sirtis was there, Michael Dorn, and the Okudas, and that's all I remember. And I think it was just one day. And I don't know
Could
if
have been a
anybody
creation.
knows.
It could have been a creation event.
No?
Yeah, I think it could have been a creation event.
Oh,
I think
could have
yes, it
been?
was a creation event.
But you don't know what year that would have been.
It could have been 88, 89. Does that sound about right?
Could have been. I don't know. I have no documentation on it, so I can't track it down.
Well, Adam, you were doing in the 90s, at the heyday of Next Generation's popularity and Deep Space Nine's emergence, multiple conventions every weekend. You were doing 3, 4, 5 shows in cities all across America. It was incredible.
The most memorable tour during the big, intense heyday was the Shatner and Nimoy tour. I did a tour with Bill and Leonard to about 10 cities. And Bill wanted to do 2 cities a weekend. So we would do one city on a Saturday and one city on a Sunday. And for me, the highlight of that tour was, I guess that was maybe the 25-year mission tour. Nassau Coliseum on Long Island. I had grown up seeing, everybody, in that was where like Madison Square Garden for a lot of people, but for me, Nassau Coliseum on Long Island. And we rented it out. We sold out Nassau Coliseum for Shatner and Nimoy. It was unbelievable. I don't know, 12,000 seats. So that was really incredible. Yeah, doing that with Leonard and Bill.
We're almost out of time, so let's get to 2 more questions.
Well, I just wanted to know, is there any way I can track that date down? Any place online I can find it? I've tried.
If you email me, adam@creationent.com, I do have a file that's typewritten from when I first started notating all the shows that we're doing. I think it goes back to 86. I might be able to find your Chicago show in an old typewritten note. I keep what I call a venue matrix of all of our shows year after year, and now it's all digital and on the cloud, but back in those days it was typewritten. So I could try looking for it for you.
Okay, next question, please.
Yeah, real quick, my name's Damien. I just wanted to let you guys know that I am here too, like she was, because of the Treksperts. I really want to thank you. I was able to thank each one of you individually in different spots. This is a great convention. I'm here because of them. I missed work, did all this stuff and it's fabulous. And
Thank you for saying that.
And I will be back, and I really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. Next question, please. And this will probably have to be our last, I'm afraid.
Okay. Yeah, don't put it too close. My name is Ann, and I'm originally from Detroit. Creation came to a town called Dearborn. And I just wanted Creation people to know I am thankful that there was a convention near me. The problem was Dearborn did not allow black people to come in their town at that time. And it was a very tough thing for me to do. But thanks anyway. I did have fun.
That's a terrible thing to hear, Ann. That's a terrible thing to hear that you felt uncomfortable coming there.
Yeah,
terrible.
It was really, really hard. I don't want to go, this is a positive place. I don't want to go into the negative
stuff. But you know
stuff.
what? Those things are true, though. That's sad, but they are true. So
it's not like that now. But it was really hard for me to make the decision to come. And I guess they weren't aware of, obviously Creation wasn't aware of that at the time.
No, it's awesome that you did come. We found another marketplace near Detroit that seemed to work out for us. We just did a supernatural show there called Novi.
Oh, yeah.
Is Novi cool?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so we might do a Star Trek show in Novi one of these, sometime.
That would be great. I go to Novi all the time.
All right,
they have
perfect.
medical meetings there too.
Great.
And Dearborn's not like that anymore. Orville Hubbard left.
Well, in all fairness, that was also the Dearborn Civic Center. It was like a gym. I mean, Novi, we actually have a wonderful, convention center, so All right, maybe
Yes.
we'll do something
It
there.
was the
Thanks,
Dearborn
Sam.
Civic Center.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Well, Joe, like Virginia Slims, you've come a long way from those early conventions. How has it all changed? I mean, you're sitting here, in this with this amazing group of people. Obviously, we've heard, this young woman's story about how she didn't even like going to Dearborn. Creation is an incredibly inclusive and inviting and safe space for people, regardless of where they come from or who they are or what they believe or who they love. And that's a huge difference from back in the day. But what else?
But what hasn't changed in 50 years is that Star Trek fans are the best genre fans anywhere. We started it. We created fandom. I mean, really, the sci-fi guys were around, but they didn't let the girls in. We let everybody in. And Star Trek's been a lifeline for 5 decades, going on 6 decades, and it continues to be so. And I thank every one of you who come here and put a positive face on and look to the future and say, the world can be better. We're going to make it better.
Absolutely. And Ashley and I are so grateful.
Okay, we're back, and that was a great panel with Joe and
Con,
Adam
love
and
something.
ZAZIE. So glad, and of course Eddie Egan, the great Eddie Egan, who we love, and Eddie was, Eddie's a really fascinating guy. You've heard him here on the show. He likes to be behind the scenes. He's a publicity guy. He's used to, supporting the talent, but not being the talent. And we really had to twist his arm to come. But the great thing
For a
about
guy
it was,
who dealt with so much publicity, he sure stays to himself.
Yeah, he does.
and the great thing was he came and he had a great time. He had just a wonderful time, and he was so happy to be there. And we were so happy to have him. Eddie's one of these people that has come into our orbit, so to speak, because of this podcast. I'm so glad to have that. Have that friendship with him now, because he's just an extraordinary guy. And I mentioned before, as a kid when I was doing my fanzine, I used to deal with him as the publicist on Star Trek 2 and 3 and 4, and it was wild to reconnect with him through Inglorious Treksperts, and now for us to all have this relationship. And he's a huge advocate for Star Trek the Motion Picture. If you ever go on the Facebook message boards and stuff, he's always out there talking about how great the motion picture is and sharing his stories, which seem to be endlessly bountiful. So so grateful to Eddie for being a part of this panel as well. This is great. I mean, I think the conventions are a great opportunity, especially now. You read about Generation Z with bed rotting, where they sit around and they're scrolling social media. They're not being social. The one thing I'll say about conventions is it got us out of the house, and it got us around people who had similar interests. And I think it also gave us a little bit of self-confidence, because I don't know about you, but we're staying at hotels, like for me in the big city, and sort of fending for yourself at a young age, and it was pretty extraordinary. I mean, it was great to have those experiences.
I never got to stay at a hotel for a convention until
really?
until 2 years ago.
Well, I mean, other than
we would do
Comic-Con.
San Diego. We would do San Diego, but that was about it.
Oh no, we would stay in this all the time.
It was always a day trip for me when I was a kid.
Yeah,
in rooms I would never deign to stay in now, but at the time it was good enough.
Well, other than the Rio.
But it's extraordinary, because you met really interesting people, and often you got to spend time with the creators, with the authors, and the actors and the different people, and because a lot of the talent would be, and back then it was different. I think they were so grateful to be lauded, as opposed to now, where a lot of people are just about it's just about the money, or they've done so many of these they're a little jaded. But some of them aren't. Some of them, they've done hundreds of conventions, and every time it's just as exciting for them as the first time they did it. So it's really remarkable.
And I made lifelong friends, like going to conventions, and just meeting people there. My buddy Phil Kim, I met him when we were in college, at another creation convention in Tyson's Corner. And we were, he basically went on, he was a production assistant on Deep Space Nine, it was he was Ira Bear's assistant, all this stuff. And just an important part of my life. I met my good friend, Derek Hughes, who's been on some panels for us, when we were literally jostling.
Yeah, but that's not impressive, because Derek Hughes is friends with everyone.
I know.
He knows everyone.
I know.
Literally, it's unbelievable.
But I was his gateway drug.
No, it's like the salt monster. Instead of salt, he just it's amazing. It's like, are you a person?
It's an alien salt
He
vampire
like
monster.
literally
Look,
connects with everyone.
He's friends with Cylons, for crying out loud.
That's true. Oh, so say
I'll
we
just
all.
leave it there.
He's such a great guy. I love Derek.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was great, and I think, like we said, if you're a Treksperts Plus subscriber, you can also listen to our audio of a wonderful, more intimate conversation between Ashley, Mike Broder, and Joe SIKORYAK in San Jose, which we would share, but it wasn't recorded on video. We only have the audio, so we're making that available to our Treksperts Plus subscribers as a bonus. You know, it's remarkable
Talk
because
about the bonus situation.
if you think about it, Star Trek kind of owes its, began at the very beginning at a convention. Of course, the World Science Fiction Convention, TriCon, was a week or two before the Man Trap premiered, and Gene came and with costumes and participated in he even dressed up as a Romulan famously.
He dressed
but then
up
they
as a
screened.
Romulan. It was amazing.
They screened Where No Man Has Gone Before, which was so embraced by the fans who had a real prove it to me attitude. They didn't believe that televised science fiction could hold a candle to literary science fiction. They had a bit of a
Except
chip
one
on their
loud
shoulder.
guy in the back row who kept talking during the
Harlan
beginning of it.
Ellison.
And
No, Isaac
it was
Asimov.
Yeah.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then because he had to prove how smart he is, and he was on the hunt for little girls. But
Now, you're thinking of Arthur C. Clarke, dude.
no, that was little boys. But but the thing about that was so remarkable is it was so well embraced. It was so embraced and so beloved that they demanded he show whatever else he had, and so he showed the cage. Because he brought that just in case. He brought the cage along and screened the cage for the audience. He demanded it, and then that was embraced as well. Because at that point they thought, everything's gonna be like these Irwin Allen shows. They had no expectations whatsoever, and they were just blown away. And then of course Man Trap premiered shortly thereafter. But so Star Trek's very beginnings, its genesis, goes back to a Star Trek convention. So. It's important in a lot of these other subsequent shows.
Conventions are the fertilizer that help Star Trek to grow.
Yeah, well, it's
to help Star Trek to grow, grow. Not
well,
Star
it's
Trek
interesting
to grow.
because when Next Generation was first announced, you saw so much of the original cast sort of bad mouthing the Next Generation, saying what a disaster it was going to be at the conventions.
Mm-hmm. And they did the same thing when Deep Space Nine.
Yep. Then the Next Generation cast started bad-mouthing Deep Space Nine before it premiered.
I think we should do a more in-depth. We should do more in-depth talking about that in another episode.
Yeah, I think that would be a great episode.
Trek.
It really is. It really is. And now they sort of we're all one big happy fleet, but it certainly wasn't the case at the time. And I think that's to be interesting to do more of a deep dive into. We'll have to.
A deep space dive?
Indeed. But it was really interesting. That was an interesting time because, of course, Star Trek IV was so hugely successful, and yet I think there was a big wariness of what Next Generation was going to be.
Sure.
God, it's hard to believe that's 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And
Crazy,
yet,
man.
here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
But we do have that listener from South Africa who's very young, so that made me feel good.
That's true.
There you go.
God knows what our demo is.
God
So, anyway, well, listen, this was an absolute, always a great time. I'm very pleased with this panel. There are going to be a lot more panels like this at Star Trek Las Vegas 2026. We hope you'll join us. You can go to creationent.com. We've barely announced any of our panels. We have some really amazing things, some outside the box stuff that's really going to surprise and hopefully delight you.
And some inside the box stuff.
I'm delighted.
Yeah, some inside the box as well. That's true. But if you're looking for 60th anniversary celebration, this is the place to find it. We will be delivering on the promise of the 60th birthday.
For 60th anniversary, come to me.
That's good. That's good, Darren. That's like one of those old creation conventions in the 80s that you'd see for their conventions or early 90s. It's like, come to the creation convention at the Hasbrook, at the convention center in New Jersey, at the Ramada Inn, Anybody who has a Howard...
Star Trek.
Yeah, so it's like somebody is like, for conventions, come to me. Oh my God, Michael Dorn, special guest. That was like when they'd have one person. It's Michael Dorn,
right?
I remember it's like during the heyday of the conventions, Creation was doing like 4 or 5 a weekend, and so Gary was doing one, Adam was doing one, Scott Mance was doing one, and if they had an additional show, then they would call me and I would go, and I have to go up to Creation and pick up this suitcase that would have all the vendor lists and a slide projector and a couple other things, and like I think a screen that would open up, and I would take it to like Indianapolis or to
and the cyanide pills.
I think Albuquerque and all these different places, and I would go and I would basically run the convention for 2 days, and it was funny because it was like it would usually be like 1 or 2 guests. I don't know what the other panels were. I can't remember because we had to fill the whole weekend. But but it was a lot of fun. That's how I met Scott Mance, because he worked for Creation at the time before he became Movie Mance. Right. He was Creation Mance. He was Metamorphosis Mance.
Con Mance. He was a con Mance.
He was part man, part ants.
Yeah. So, but so good times. Okay, so on that note, we want to thank you as always for joining us for Inglorious Treksperts. You can find out how to engage with us on social at Linktree/Treksperts Plus. And that'll take you to all our great social channels, including Discord. You want to engage directly. That's probably the best way to get a hold of any of us is through the Discord channel. Ashley, you're on there quite a bit. And, of course, you can email us at trekspertsplus@gmail.com. And Darren, you're going to be on the cruise next week. That's exciting. We're interested in hearing how that goes on a 3-hour tour.
Everything packed right now.
Oh, he's getting to leave.
Packed.
Are you Gilligan or Jonas Grumby?
Look at
and
me.
Will you find your Tina Louise? That's right.
I prefer Marianne Summers.
No, really? You're a Marianne girl. See, I was always about Ginger.
No, I'm a Marianne guy.
Oh,
yeah, I am. You know what? Also a Marianne guy.
Yeah, I like Ginger. Yeah, okay.
No, Ginger has too much mileage.
Yeah, way too much mileage.
It's not the... Never mind.
Marianne was farm fresh. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, my.
God. It's not the years, it's the mileage.
But she knew her way around husbandry.
She did. If they had cows on that show...
Actually, I thought you were going to say, I liked Lovey. But she was taken by Mr. Magoo.
Now that I'm getting older, the idea isn't as repulsive as it was.
She probably was younger than you are now when she
God,
filmed Gilligan's Island.
Thanks very much. No, she was not, but thanks.
Yeah. But, and then there were the Natives and the Harlem Globetrotters.
Oh my God!
And who else? Who else was guest stars on that? Everybody guest starred on that. Even Korob's outfit.
Oh right, that's right.
From Cat's Paw. Yeah,
that's right.
Anyway, okay, that's enough of us. That's enough of our yakking. We're done here. But I want to thank you for joining us for another episode of Inglorious Treksperts. You can follow us wherever you listen to podcasts every Thursday, or now you can watch us on YouTube. However you enjoy the Inglorious Treksperts, please rate us and 5 stars and let other people know. It helps tell the algorithm, which I don't really understand, but it tells the algorithm, to come find us, to bring other like-minded people. Hey, algorithm! Hey, algorithm!
Hey, lady!
And that stuff becomes more and more important. It's impossible to find anything unless the computer is pointing the way to you. Yeah. So
were you doing the Hey Culligan Man voice? You were, weren't you?
Who?
You.
No, me.
No, me.
Him.
Hey Culligan Man. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, we want to thank you as always for being a part. And of course, it's not too late to send us your 60th anniversary letters, emails at trekspertsplus@gmail.com. So on behalf of Ashley Edward Miller, Darren Doctor, myself, we want to wish Darren a bon voyage.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
And a safe sailing.
I'll be reporting back with hopefully video and interviews.
See, I think what you should do is take over the bridge and start saying, "I'll take you home again, Kathleen." That would be funny for the Star Trek cruise.
Oh, that would be hilarious.
It's like that episode of The Office, Booze Cruise, which is one of the great episodes of The Office, where Michael Scott is trying to hold a meeting, and Nobody wants to listen to stupidity. But yeah, you could start singing "I'll Take You Home Again," Kathleen. And I understand you're moderating a panel on the cruise, aren't you?
Due to the wonderfulness of the mayor of Star Trek, Jonathan Frakes, he requested that I help with his panel on the 60th anniversary of
Well,
the
that's
original
romantic.
series.
It's
Isn't
great
it romantic?
because you know that one day "Let Me Help" will replace "I Love You"
That's correct. And
sometime
I'm
in
glad
the
to
mid
help.
21st century. So the fact that you're helping is very romantic. I love it. I think
I'm
it's
a helper.
great. I can't wait to hear about that panel. I think you're gonna have a great time. We're anxious to get the full report when you return.
My brother Dave and I will be enjoying the wonderful cruise.
Your brother?
And I'll be on a beach earning 20%.
My brother.
If only.
I happen to know you do have a
Don't
brother,
have
and it's David.
Yeah, and he'll be signing at Star Trek Las Vegas. So if you want David's
No
autograph,
I mean, he would sign.
And this is why people turn off the end of the podcast.
They do.
Okay.
They
So
do
keep
not.
on
They
track.
love
Do they? Keep
Do
telling
they?
yourself that.
They do.
Keep I don't know about that. Keep on track. Keep on trekking, ingloriously, of course.
Of course.